My name is Megan Miles. I'm the management analyst here at the Village of Downers Grove. Welcome to the Managing Your Stormwater What You Can Do workshop. This evening we'll have two presentations. The first from Karen Dalton-Lang. She's our stormwater administrator here at the Village. Karen's duties at the Village include managing and mitigating the effects of urbanization on stormwater drainage throughout the Village. She has a degree in civil engineering from the University of Illinois at Chicago and a Master's of Science in Information Systems from Roosevelt University. Karen will discuss some changes with our stormwater code and explain best management practices, or BMPs, and how they can help with drainage. Next, we'll have Jim Kleinwachter. He works at the Conservation Foundation. He's the Conservation Program Manager. He's been volunteering with the foundation for over 20 years and has worked on prairie and wetland restoration projects at Warrenville's Johnson School and on several other educational endeavors with the foundation. In January of 2004, he joined the staff full-time as the land preservation specialist. He works with government agencies and private landowners to negotiate open space purchases, facilitate land donations, and conservation easements. He currently manages the Conservation at Home program, which teaches about sustainable landscaping practices. Jim has a Bachelor of Arts degree from Benedictine University and an MBA in marketing from National University. His presentation will talk about rain gardens, rain barrels, and solving water issues in your yard. Following the presentations, we'll have some time for questions, as well as time for you to visit the vendors if you already haven't made your way over. They're in the committee room, which is just down the hall to the left. And the workshop will be taped, as you probably found out, and posted on the Village YouTube website for future viewing if you want to go back and review the presentations. There's also a bunch of literature for you guys to take home, comment cards to leave for our staff. And thank you for attending and enjoy the presentations.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this beautiful evening. How many people are here tonight because their yard looks like this? Okay. How many people are here tonight because you might be doing a new improvement project to your home, like an addition or a patio? All right. And how many people are here that are contractors in the trades? Okay, great. So most of us have issues like this. I'm just going to give a very brief overview, and Jim has got the real exciting presentation. Mine's just going to give you a little bit about what BMPs, what does that mean? What exactly are they? How can BMPs help drainage, and where you can get some more information. So this is a definition. It's a long definition, it's in our code, but basically BMPs are ways to minimize stormwater runoff, help with water quality, and reduce erosion. But what it really means is keep your water on your own property as much as possible so it doesn't go onto your neighbors, the sidewalk, or the street. So we're really trying to encourage ways to keep water on your own property and manage it. So BMPs, best management practices, and now we have a new acronym called PCBMPs, which are post-construction best management practices. So many of you know that our code derives from DuPage County. We've adopted their code, and we can do things to tweak it a little more, and that's what we've done. PCBMPs, which are also required by DuPage County, are basically a way of a combination of volume control to hold water and a way to improve the water quality. So when you put those two circles together in the middle, that's the post-construction BMPs, ways to improve water quality and ways to hold water. Here's an example. It's a very simplistic example, but the picture on the top, grass, that's a detention basin. It'll hold water. But that grass isn't doing a whole lot for our environment. It's, fertilized to keep it green maybe, but it's just holding water. Whereas the type of stormwater basin below it has some native vegetation and some water quality features. It also holds water, so it does both, and that's what a post-construction BMP is. Some examples of post-construction BMPs are rain gardens, and Jim's going to be talking a lot about those tonight, how to build them, why they're good, and why they work, especially in our kind of soils here. A bioswale, think of that as a linear rain garden. It's just a long rain garden, but oftentimes they'll also have a pipe underneath it with perforated pipes just to help a little bit more volume and maybe some more infiltration. But if you have a long, narrow area, like these are between 2 yards, that is often a solution. Permeable pavers, you can put those in your driveway, as a patio. We've even got a road here in town made of permeable pavers. And what makes permeable pavers work is there's gaps between them, but there's a whole system underneath the permeable pavement of gravel and sometimes some perforated pipe as well to also hold the water and allow it to infiltrate. Rain harvesting systems, those can be gorgeous if you've got the room. This is a picture of a house with, you can see the patio and everything. But what's interesting about rain gardening harvesting systems, this is a little snapshot of what's underneath. And there's different ways you can infiltrate that water into your backyard and use it to water your vegetable garden, use it for your water, and just make it an amenity at your house. Dry wells, think of a big hole in the ground with gravel, and your water can go into that and then infiltrate. We've had some issues with dry wells that we have very clay soils here in Downers Grove, so they don't always work as well as we would like them to, and that's where Jim's going to talk more about the rain gardens and how those work in most cases even better than dry wells. So I said my presentation was going to be brief. For the homeowners out there, where can you get more information? We put this on our website, and you can go to downers.us. In the search box, enter stormwater management and scroll down and you'll see PCBMP manual. This not only tells information for homeowners who are looking to help solve drainage issues on their property, but also for the homeowners who need to abide by our new code. And we recently passed a code that puts the threshold of requiring PCBMPs when you add 700 square feet or more of net new impervious area. So if you have a house and you put on a lateral addition and it's more than 700 square feet, or maybe it's an addition and a patio, you have to provide some sort of BMPs on your property to help control and contain that water on your property. For the contractors in the room, good news, the ILCA just released their contractor's guide to small-scale rain gardens. It used to be that you'd have to pay for this, and it's a very comprehensive document. Probably most residents would rather see our little manual because it's not as technical. But for the contractors in the room, they might want to take a look at this because it's got a lot of good resources. Very briefly, and I know we'll be talking a little bit later, but I wanted to introduce you to a couple people in the room that might be helping you with your drainage concerns. Susan Kwasny, stand up. Susan's here. She works with me in Public Works, and oftentimes if you call with a drainage issue or a pre-existing condition, Susan will go out and meet with you. Julie Lomax, stand up. Julie is here. She's in our Community Development Department. So for those of you who get permits for different projects, Julie will help you go through the permitting process and also can give guidance as well. So I know this has been a very brief overview, but like I said, Jim's got the really good stuff in his presentation, and that's what we're all waiting for. And we'll all be around later to answer questions. So, Jim?
I better look at the good stuff. Glad to be here tonight, and Downers Grove is cutting edge with their stormwater utility and the credits that they offer, and they've been one of the partners we chose to do our conservation and community program. So certain communities we're working with very closely to dig deeper and to get into the community and be able to help them on a larger scale type of a situation. So I'm going to talk tonight about some of these BMPs that we can do in our yards and why, so you understand it a little bit better. We're not going to be able to have the time to answer all those specific questions, but we do more than just give you a brochure and say, here, good luck. So I will come to your house if need be. So that's the beauty of the Conservation at Home program. We give personal assistance. If your issue is something you can't describe to me, I'll come over to your house and we'll walk it. So on any level, if it's an easy consultation or if it's the papers I have in the other room, we can solve it that way. If not, you'll be seeing me walk in your yard with you. Our office is in Naperville at the base of Washington, and 60 acres. So at the end of this, I'll be inviting you to come to the farm. This Sunday, we have an open house at the farm. You can see permeable concrete, permeable pavers.
wind turbines, solar panels, rain gardens, you name it, we have it there. At 1 o'clock, there is an education, a more in-depth education class, and 2 o'clock we'll be doing a farm tour. So you'll be able to see the historic farm dating to 1870s, the milk house, green roof, all these new features we put. Karen had the rainwater harvesting. We've got 2 systems at the farm that you can see and touch. The reason we're here, you like living in Downers Grove, it's a beautiful community. We all want the same things in our lives and our homes. It's a matter of how do we get them and who is going to help me with that. And so that's what kind of I designed the program around is I know what you want, so I can deliver it. Some of the things that I love this book from Wilson. It's the scientific reasons why we like nature. So some of us like nature, you think it's nice, you've got a pet at home or plants. This is the scientific background is we need it. So we need the connection with nature. It makes us whole, it makes us feel better. And so, I talked to somebody from the garden club. It's not an accident that people like gardening and like to be outside and like to feel the sun. And it's all part of us. So creating a better, harmonious home that is sustainable and the yard functions, we're going to be better off in the long run on a number of different levels. With the Conservation at Home program, we have done hundreds of homes. We're out there working with people, and we work on residential properties. I've got a Conservation at Work program that works on commercial properties. And I'll talk to you later about another thing I'm promoting to do the next step. So one of the first things about thinking about sustainable and why we're doing these things, we have to understand that this is a plant-based planet. Everything, every living thing on this planet requires plants. Plants are the only thing that can take and photosynthesize the sun and turn it into food. So once we get that concept that we have to have plants, then we have to understand that there are functional plants and there are decorative. And similarly, in your home, if you had just decorative things around, you wouldn't have a stove, a refrigerator, a TV, a couch. Those things that you use, it would all be decorative things, and we wouldn't have function. We don't think about that in our yards, how our yards are not functional anymore, and they're not draining the water, they're not attracting wildlife. It's because of the changes we've done, and they're not working. So that's most of the time when I get called to help me, my yard's not working. A little understanding about why it might not be working, and then understanding that I'll be promoting these native plants, and the reason I'm promoting them is because they are working. We don't really see it, so you don't really understand all the workings of these plants, but they've evolved here. 10,000 years of evolution have made these plants better at sustaining themselves in Illinois. This is the prairie state, and there's a lot of positive reasons why we want to integrate some of these functional plants. Not that you have to do all of them. You can have some decorative stuff. But understanding when we look at things, decorative, functional. And if we don't have some of each, we may not have the function that we want. We may have problems. So here's the trick. The plants are different and they're unique. And the evolution has made them sustainable in Illinois. So some of them go down deeper than an oak tree, and they don't need rain. They're getting groundwater. Some of them are taking the rain. In April and May, we're going to get rain like we do every year, and they're going to absorb it and hold it until July and August when we have a drought. So similar to a camel, they get water when they can, and then they go through long periods without rain. And I'll show you some pictures later on of examples of how that's happening. But for you to visualize, we can see it in the animal world. We see a turtle, and we understand that the shell is there and that they can protect themselves, or the giraffe with this long neck needs it to get the leaves. We understand evolution in the animal world. We just don't see it in the plant world, and we don't give it its credence because of that. So this is just a cutaway, a drawing, so you can kind of visualize what's happening. The roots are opening up the clay. We have compacted clay in this whole region. And clay, like a bowl, is holding the water. And it's not the shape that we have a problem with, the fact that it's impervious. So if you had a colander is still shaped in like a bowl, but the water drains right through it because of the holes. And we're gonna rely on these roots to open up that clay and let that water percolate back into the ground again. So we can do this and it can be pretty, and we just need to learn how to implement the right plants in the right place to get the form, the function, the beauty that'll make these work. Read a lot about pollinator issues. Another case where we've brought things from all over the planet here into our Illinois lives. The whole system of zoning, if you're looking at a Zone 8 plant or a Zone 5 plant, that's to help you bring stuff from Florida or China here and understand, will it live here in Illinois? Well, I'm advocating Illinois plants in Illinois will give us better function. So again, you get back to that decorative, you bring something from China here and it's going to be decorative. So it hasn't evolved here, it doesn't have the function. And the same thing with the pollinators. You've read about milkweed, a native plant here. We're not using it much anymore. We've sprayed, we don't have it, and we're now seeing a decline in the populations that require those things. If you're tomato gardening or using vegetable gardening, you need the pollinators. And the sustainable thing that we're going to get, besides putting in the rain garden, we're going to get the benefit of putting these pollinators and other creatures back into our lives. The Sun-Times and the Tribune all had articles about the pollination and plant milkweed. You've heard that over and over again, but it's not just milkweed. We need diversity. We need a variety of plants and insects in our yards to make it function better. Monarchs are on their way now, and we need to start thinking about that if we're going to try to rebuild these populations, that they're coming from Mexico, passing through here, and having a little something in our yards for them would be a positive thing that we can do too. So if I showed you a picture and I said left or right, which one is blooming in the middle of the drought? And which one is feeding monarchs? Which one is absorbing water? Which one's filtering water? Which one is needing to be maintained every week by mowing? Which one's a costly surface that requires fertilization and weed control, and yet what do we have in our yard? What do you have in your, what is the basic thing in your school that you go to, or a church that you attend, or the park? You know, what are we putting on our landscapes? More of. So I'll show you some pictures of some places and how they've used a little less grass and a little more function. So grass, being that it's from Europe, it's not functioning here, it's one of the decorative things, and I would argue that it's not that decorative. So could we use a little less of it? I think we can, and I'll show you some pictures. This one is right here from Downers Grove, right on Belmont, I think it is. So a little less grass, a little more butterfly gardening, and even right out in the front yard, we can have these manageable gardens that can infiltrate water, feed the butterflies, and still look pretty at the same time. The drain head in your yard doesn't look so bad, and you say, what's so bad about that? Well, in this picture, we're going to try to infiltrate some of that water before it gets into the drain head. Karen talked about us keeping it on our properties, and every ounce that you keep in here in our properties in Downers Grove, it's one less ounce that goes, all our water's draining to the Mississippi. So the DuPage drains into the Illinois, which goes into the Mississippi, and our fresh rainwater from DuPage County is going out into the Gulf of Mexico. And we're waiting for rain to come back, and then we've got an intricate system of funneling that water back down into the drain heads again. So we need that rain, we want to infiltrate it, we want to have it recharge the aquifers, and we want to water our plants with it and keep it out of that drain head. So in this picture, it's a very simple rain garden that is just on the upside of where the drain would go. Some places have gone so far as to put ridges around the drain so that the water stays in their yard even a little bit longer. And your drain is still there for emergencies, but the real ugly side of the drain pipe is the other end. And if it's the detention basin in your homeowners association, or if it's a lake where your kids go fishing, or the Fox River, the DuPage River, we're sending this downstream, and it's carrying a lot of material with it. One of the big things that we're finding in the area is over-nutrified water. So we're carrying fertilizer from our lawns into the river, and it's causing algae bloom, and the rich nutrients in the water are causing problems downstream. So here's a simple rain garden we have at the farm. We put, by 2 downspouts, we put a rubber mat, so it keeps the water away from the house. We're pitching it on an angle. We'll show you later how we put rocks over the top of the mat. So the water's going to slow down, bouncing off these rocks, and it's going to pool in that lower area where I'm standing there. I'm in that True Value shirt. And from this simple beginning, we put the native plants in there, and voila, we have a rain garden. And we're not mowing it. It's the penstemon, the white there, is attracting loads of hummingbirds in the springtime. So we're getting finches on the coneflowers and other creatures that are coming. We have toads and other wildlife in this area. It's a self-watering garden. We don't have to maintain it. We don't have to feed it. We don't have to water it. We don't have to put fertilizer on it. And it blooming. In the bottom of the rain garden, we're going to put the wet-loving species, and as it comes up towards the sidewalk, we have dry-loving species. So it's right plant, right place. And again, I will come and help you with those determinations of where we would put things. And I've got a really nice handout in the other room on native plants. It's kind of a native plants for dummies, where it's got icons that tell you I like water, birds like me, or I like it dry. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to do it yourself, but I'm not going to leave you hanging either. I will come and help if need be. The bioswale Karen talked about too. A lot of cases we're solving problems where it's tough to mow anyway, in the ditch. And we're not calling them ditches anymore, we're calling them bioswales. So when you fix a ditch and make it this functioning situation, the ditches were meant to funnel water. It's just like a glorified pipe. It's a shape, and it's pitched, and it's meant to get that water out of here. So we're going to kind of think back in that system. How can we use that linear area that the water is meant to go down? How can we filter it? How can we slow it down and infiltrate it? And then quit mowing where it's difficult to get the mower anyway. So we're going to solve a couple of problems at the same time. Here's a picture of that rainwater harvesting. We've got one step. I can show it to you. And you can see how it looks and see how it functions and see how you might integrate rainwater harvesting into your yard. We've got a giant one that's 25,000 gallons that we irrigate the vegetable fields with at the farm. So small scale, large scale, we can do this on any scale you want. There's another reason why we want to start thinking about native plants. Karen mentioned, or I think it was Megan, that I have a degree in marketing. Well, I'm a salesman. I have to sell these concepts. And people are going to ask me, why would I want to do this? Well, there you go. These birds, the most colorful, best birds we could possibly have in our yards, will not come to a bird feeder. Even the wren. I was just at a big conference, and I asked people, like, how many people have a wren house? And about 100 hands went up. And I said, okay, how many people feed their wren? Or what do they eat? They've never come to a bird feeder.
Carolina wren routinely.
Okay. But most of these birds, including a wren, primarily eat bugs and berries. So if you want the cedar waxwing in the top center, serviceberry, viburnums, we'll bring them to your yard. We're feeding our wildlife with bugs and insects, berries on our native plants. The birds are adapted to eat from the food source. So there's just another reason why we can, it's called birdscaping, We can add interest to our yard, add color to our yard, add function. In case of service berries, you can eat the berries. So it adds food source besides for ourselves. And if we don't, this is the consequences of not paying attention to the landscaping. There's a lot of things going on in this picture. You've got sloping shoreline that I don't see any dandelions, so I'm assuming that there's been application of fertilizer. It's running down into the lake, causing problems in the lake. It's not a good place to fish. I don't want to put a blanket down there and have a picnic with my daughter. You know, so if I showed you this situation, or just asked you about the aesthetics, is this so beautiful? Or could you live with something else? And the function here is incredible. The water is blue. You can see the reflection of clouds in the water. And the plants are doing the magic. So there's no, you know, if I leave you with anything tonight, it's that these plants do way more than you think they do. And it's the function, it's what's driving all of these environmental benefits. And it maybe doesn't seem right to you at the first time, but I can show you over and over again how it does work. And these plants are doing these magical things I talk about. The science of it is phytoremediation, where these plants are cleaning soil. BP Amoco is using prairie dropseed on the gas stations. It eats gasoline residue and oil. So the plant will break it down and metabolize gas and oil. So this is the scientific things, and the nutrient load that I showed you before, that's called eutrophication. I teach at the College DuPage, and we're going into the details. I don't want to bore you with the details, but the science is there that backs up all of these things, and almost all the water in northeastern Illinois is eutrophication is causing problems in the water. The dissolved oxygen that the fish need is reduced by the algae that's eating the oxygen in the water. Low oxygen conditions, we have fish kills, a bunch of other problems that are occurring in all of our river systems because of the impacts of what's going on with the land. And that's the beauty of what Downers Grove is doing, is you pay based on the impact to the watershed. So if we can reduce your impact, we'll be reducing your fee. And that's the goal, is to have a better yard. Look at the numbers on grass. $40 billion annually on grass care. And it's the biggest surface covering 39 and lower 48 states. So again, can we use a little bit less grass? Grass is not absorbing water, it's not feeding the wildlife, and it's what they call it negatively productive. We don't get broccoli from it, it doesn't have a crop. And so we better like it a lot, because understanding that it's costing us a lot of money. I've created a product to replace grass on large-scale sites. So in these detention basins, on college campuses, on big areas, we're going to go to what I'm calling a pollinator meadow. So it's a shorter variety that we can use. We want to keep that view shed over. We don't want these tall, I referred to one person that said, I'm taking the scary out of prairie. And creating a shorter product that we can put in our residential areas that's going to be acceptable and still have all the function that I talked about earlier. Along roadways, I'm talking to IDOT, and there's a lot of places where we can implement these in a combination situation where we may still have some grass and we're still going to have form and function away from the areas. We want to bring these BMPs, these natural things, close to home so your kids and grandchildren can get out and find a praying mantis and find a toad and have those birds come to us. We don't have to get in the car necessarily and drive to the Morton Arboretum to see nature. We want to integrate nature into our subdivisions. Here's some pictures I'll run through now of a before and after. So here's a little cute brick house. The plants get overgrown and you've got turf. So what could we do with something like that? And we took the old shrubs out, let you see the house again, took out a bunch of the front lawn, planted it with plugs. The seeds work fine on large scale, on home sites, lots. I would suggest we're going to use plants, these small plant plugs or larger plants that we can identify where they're going to go and give you a more organized look, especially in the front yard. They put in rocks and a rainwater feature, rain garden right there in the front lawn. And it still looks very attractive because it's done in an aesthetically pleasing way using clumpings of plants that will make it look more orderly than if you had a random seeding, for example. The industrial park, this is the situation we would use the meadow mix on. Industrial park, large scale area. I asked them what they do with that. They said, nothing. Why would anyone go out there? We don't look at it. It's ugly. Change it. And we now have function with the water's being absorbed. They put picnic tables out there. They're using the space and enjoying the natural beauty of it. Rain barrels are another thing I'll be promoting here in Downers Grove. Each time it rains, you can capture up to 55 gallons of water. We've got devices to manage the overflow. They're mosquito-friendly, or mosquito-proof, I should say. There's drains on them, there's overflows, there's places to connect multiple barrels together. So it's a very easy way to get going in thinking about rain as a resource and how we can capture it, either directly or indirectly by keeping it in our yards. The rainwater, the benefit for you is it's better water. Your plants will respond much better to rain than they will to chlorinated water that you'd be getting from the city. So we're up over 11,000 rain barrels later. These are repurposed barrels that have come from around the world. I've got one in the room over there that came from Greece, that came with pickles and olives in it. And now we're going to repurpose that and put it in your yard. And you're going to catch some of that lovely rain, and we're going to use it again and again to water our hanging baskets. And my dog wants rainwater. So if I give her tap water in the house, she'll stand by the door and wait till I open the door, and she'll run out and drink the outside water. So I even brought snow in the house to water some of my plants that are used to rain water, and I didn't want to put tap water on them after they'd gotten used to rainwater. So even in the wintertime, I was utilizing the rainwater. So I will answer questions, but again, the open house at the farm is this Sunday, 1 o'clock for education, 2 o'clock for the tour, and all the information that I have about if you want to get involved with the Conservation at Home program, we'd love to have you join the program. We've got additional education that you'll get when you become a member. We'll help you for free, but obviously we want you to continue along the program. One day earn a sign for your yard. So whether you're ready or not, we still want you to join. We still want you to get involved. We still want you to get information on when we have plant sales and when we have other education programs. We have canoe trips and different outings to see natural things. And we want you to join our group in trying to move towards a more healthier Downers Grove. Well, thank you for your time, and I can take some questions if there's time.
I'm a condo association, and it's right on Ogden, just the Fairway Road, which is across from the DuPage Inn, and we have the rainwater or whatever comes down along that ditch,
Okay.
and that's the problem. You know, I'm here to-
Well, it sounds like a ditch turning into a bioswale.
And part of it is concreted, and then the west end is not.
I worked with Good Samaritan Hospital, so you're very familiar with them. They had concrete-lined ditches that were going across their detention basin, made the basin ineffective. And when I went out and walked the property with him, he said, well, what do you think? And I said, you're not going to want to hear, but that concrete needs to be broken up and let the basin utilize the whole basin instead of these ditches running. And he called me back about a year later and he said, I'm done. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, I'm done. I called an engineer, worked with the city, they broke up the concrete, they took out the sod and planted the basin with native plantings. And here's a success story that we had, and yours might be the next.
Yeah, because I mean, and it it ties into the west end is the backside of the entrance for the golf course. And it runs along, it floods.
Yeah.
The one-
And it's not just a matter of volume, it's a matter of, quantity of water is an issue, flooding, but quality is another thing that Karen talked about, that you filter it and clean it so that what does leave is in a better situation, less silt and things that are in the water when it's moving along.
And then we also have, in IDOT, I guess, so when we had all the snow last year, when it was melting onto Ogden, and they said that's our fault, or our problem, to prevent that.
Salt is another issue when we talked
When
about
it
the
was
road.
melting and when we were having the freeze-thaw cycles in the spring, there was someone contacted the association and said that you're causing ice on Ogden Avenue. What do we do with the snow?
I'll interject with a quick comment here. For those of you that might have specific drainage issues like this, I'll leave my cards up over there, and feel free to send me an email or give me a phone call, and we'll arrange to come out and do a site meeting with you. And oftentimes, when we get to the point where more expertise and design is needed, we refer you to Jim. But a lot of the stuff, because it's multifaceted of the different kinds of drainage issues, we can work with you on that.
And we have contractors, Dig Right In is here, there are other facility, if you want someone to give you a quote and have them do it, we'll give you that information. If you have capability of doing it yourself, I'll help you do it yourself. So in any of these regards, we found that we have answers for the questions. Yes?
How long does it take to get the plants to grow, to do their job like that? And when's the best time to plant them? And is there a lot of upkeep to it?
Okay, we'll start at the beginning. This is a perfect time to plan, and we're going to plant in late April or May. So as far as the timing of how long it takes, for home situations, I'm going to recommend using plants. So from the seed situation, you're looking at like 3 years. From a plant situation, they're functioning almost immediately. So I can buy gallon pots that will be a full-grown plant. So if it's a smaller area that we want speed, you go to a bigger plant. If we've got a little bit of time and it's not such a critical situation, we can go to small plants, the plugs they call them. So we can speed the process, a little more costly, or you can slow it down. And the maintenance is very much less than grass would be in those areas. So you don't need to spray bug killer on them. You don't, it's a matter of trim them maybe in the springtime, cut down last year's growth. And you're maintaining, the plants really need nothing. What you're going to do is you're going to maintain the invasives. So in the beds that you build, you may get thistle, or you may get, the normal weeds that we have in our gardens. Dandelions are going to pop up here and there, so you're going to be managing weeds for a while. Some of the tricks that we use, I put newspaper down. So I plant maybe 3 or 5 of one variety in a clump, and then put newspaper all around them, and then put wood chips on top of that. And the newspaper will keep the weeds down for a time for the plants to get established a little bit. And then once they get in, it's even less care on this list.
Newspaper over the permanent.
Over the dirt.
I mean, instead of that matting.
Right. Now you're trying to keep thinking about putting plastic matting on your soil, or, gosh forbid, if you used volcanic rock, or you're adding things that are not natural to the soil, how are you going to get those out at a later time? So using something that's biodegradable, like newspaper or cardboard.
How about the weed cloth that they have? Is that a good idea?
It's plastic still. It's
No,
still
I
some
thought
kind of
it was
a...
cloth material one that comes in a roll. It's like a material.
If it degrades quickly, burlap doesn't degrade very quickly. So
That's why the idea is it lets the water go through, and the weeds, it keeps the weeds from growing.
right. In a natural situation, you wouldn't need the artificial weed barrier. Okay, a little bit of newspaper or something that's biodegradable would be preferable to putting any kind of unnatural thing on top of the soil. You want worms and other things to live in the rich soil. Beck?
Many homes in Downs Road on the LPDA or neighborhood drainage area. Have you done a lot of work with those type of residential homes where the water sits and drains and it's wet and it's dry in the summer and, you know, this wildlife that you're talking about?
Yes. When we're not talking about moving soil, a lot of the landscaping changes that I'm talking about are planting right plant in the right space. And a lot of the plants that I talked about tonight are very adaptive to dry conditions. Typically, if you went online and you Googled rain garden, you're going to come up with some plants that like it wet all the time. So that's the problem, you know, unless you have a wet spot that's wet all the time. We have these, the normal condition for our area is wet in the spring, dry in the summer. And that is almost what these prairie plants are used to. So I would look at, I'm not too worried about the water issue. I would look at sun. How much sun does it get? And what would I pick based on that? I know we have clay soil, so I can understand that part of it. So I'm not worried too much about the water issue. I'm more worried about the other conditions that the plant's going to have to do. And some of it is we try some things and see what happens. It's not a big investment to put in 3 plants of a certain kind and see how they do. So we're going to, you know, trial and error.
So,
Yes.
curiosity question, if a significant part of your backyard goes underwater for 75% of the last year.
Got a boat?
That's swimming.
If that would be one of those very wet spots all the time. Now, I've seen situations where these plants have gone into a ditch in a bioswale that was always filled with water and drained it so that it dries, it isn't wet like that all the time. That's going to take a while. So maybe, you know, if it was 2 feet deep, you're not going to do much back in that part of it. But the edge, you start at the edges and let the prairie dry it out and work through that system. And again, that's a specific thing. I'll come out and we'll walk it and see how bad it is. And what else is growing there is what I look at. So if I can see other plants that are growing and thriving there, then I can see from that, well, if that can live, then I can go to these plants.
Swamp milkweed is the only one surviving.
Okay. Well, if swamp milkweed is surviving, then I can know what its companion plants are. So we'll go from there. Somebody had a question way back?
Maybe this question is for Karen, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I love plants and et cetera. I have the lowest house for blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks. Water comes toward me. My question is, what has Downers Grove done since April of 2013 to mitigate these big problems?
That's a great question. We've done a lot, and we still have a long way to go. After the April 18th flood event of 2013, staff, we took everybody's comments, because we got a lot of phone calls, as you can imagine, a lot of emails, and we actually, with our GIS department, helped locate where these areas were, because a lot of these areas were areas that have never seen flooding to that devastating degree before. We took all of that, we analyzed it in a staff report, and then last year we published the 2014 Stormwater Project Analysis Report. You may have seen that online. And so what we have, I'll call it a roadmap, if you will, of projects that we'll be implementing over the next several years to help alleviate some of these areas. Some of these are larger scale flood type of things. They're not something that a rain garden is going to solve. Right, because there's flooding, you know, on the large scale, and then there's smaller stormwater management issues more local in your own yard or maybe within a couple of yards. So if there's things that are on your particular property that we might be able to assist you with, we most certainly will. And that's where you can grab my card or Susan's, and we'll meet with you and let you know, depending upon where you're at.
We have communicated, you've emailed me.
Okay.
But what has been done? What has been done? I seem to not get that question. Yes, there's a plan, et cetera, but what has...
Oh, we're doing, like, last year I think we did about 20 million in...
Where? What was it?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to let you know, like, all the stormwater improvement projects we did last year, the stream bank stabilization projects. Oh, that's all on our website. If you go to Downers. Okay, let me tell you where to find it. If you go to downers.us, and, for example, for a good place to look is in the budget. So if you, in our search engine, if you do 2014 budget, up will come that. And you look in the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, a portion of the budget, and it lists a sheet by sheet, like what the project is and what it'll be doing. So we've done things throughout the entire village, and if you've got my email, I can walk you through it. You know, give me a call, and I can walk you where to get it on our website.
So, but is that understandable, or is it some vague
Oh, no.
thing? Like, will we know the address where it is? Because sometimes neighborhoods are mentioned, and I'm like, I don't know what that neighborhood is.
When you go to the CIP, it typically gives like a little map. If it does say neighborhood, like last year, we did a lot of work in Downers Grove Estates, okay?
Where is
If you
that?
don't know where that's at, you don't know.
That's
So,
part of the problem. In the paper, they always
Yeah.
mention these neighborhoods. I don't know where
yeah.
these neighborhoods are.
On our website is also this, the map goes with the CIP part of the budget, and it'll say, like, it'll highlight some streets, let's say in red, and say SW032 for the number, for example, and you can see exactly what that is, and you click on the CIP, and up comes the page that describes that. So it's all there. It's just, you know, I can walk you through on how to get to it, but it's very informative. Very, very informative.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
And that is, how many gallons or, like, that April 13th event, how would what you've done so far have impacted that, if that had been done before? What difference would that have made to all of us?
Probably not a whole heck of a lot.
Okay, that's the.
You know, when you get that much water, there's the infrastructure that's in place won't handle that kind of water that we had on April 18th of 2013. I kind of, some people liken it to safety when you're driving a car. If we all drove tanks, you know, we wouldn't get hurt in a car accident because we're all driving tanks. That's not a practical solution. So you can't build storm sewers and detention basins large enough and enough of them for that kind of rain. What we can do is mitigate a lot of the effects of that. So for example, when we go out and talk to people about things they have around their house, a lot of houses I saw just didn't have their window wells up high enough. So the ground was here and their window well was right there too. Had their window well been raised maybe 5 or 6 inches above the ground, water wouldn't have started to come down their window well and gotten into their basement. Other places, you know, it's different things, but that's one of the things. We'll come out and walk around your yard with you and point out ways that things you can do to help yourself, to protect yourself, and to mitigate those kind of flood damages when we have that kind of event. Yes, sir.
I think I can answer your question just a little bit. I live on the west side of Denburn Woods on St. Joseph Creek. Karen's aware of my situation. I've lived there since 2008, and I've been in touch with the original builder from 15 years ago, and he came to visit. And he said, wow, back about 20 years ago, St. Joseph Creek was dredged by the village and it was 10 feet wide. In back of my house, it's now 40 feet wide. It's filling with silt and debris that's washed down from all the construction. The creek has actually changed its course. I don't know if you've walked, but I'll invite you to, I'll give you some hip waders and we can walk together. It needs to be dredged. You can't, back in 2008, if a 2-inch rain fell within 24 hours, 650 cubic feet per second flowed down the creek.
Yeah, the creeks throughout our village are one of the main conveyance systems, and you're right, I'm sure they have changed. I think the Army Corps did a project back in the day,
Right.
And things have changed over time. And that's one of the reasons why I think stormwater management has evolved over the years, because the old way of, the Army Corps coming in and digging out things isn't sustainable. You need the native plants and stuff to keep the creeks on course. We have areas in town where we've done stream bank stabilization projects where we're taking away some of the old walls and putting in rocks to help shape the creek, and also native plants to help keep the banks in line. So there's a lot of major issues, but what we're here to talk about tonight is not so much the big things, but what we can do on our individual properties. I think that's the focus of tonight. So does anybody have
Karen,
any?
I need to interrupt you.
Yeah.
The reason that I'm concerned is, there's, in back of my, the creek runs through my property. I've got 100 feet on one side and 300 feet on the other. And that's an alluvial sedimentation basin. It's all black dirt. In back of my house, the walls are black dirt, 6 feet high. And I can show, I'd like to give a video presentation of all the years of my documentation of erosion. And you can see in the winter, as the creek, when the ground is frozen, when the creek goes down, there's an inch of erosion. Creek goes down, an inch of erosion. And what happens, the creek, the walls fall in on themselves. All of that dirt is washing away. It can never be replaced. And the ancient trees that are back in that property are dying because their roots are exposed. Something needs to be done to conserve that beautiful property. And I agree with you. Plants are wonderful. We have milkweed, we have all these beautiful birds. This morning there were 3 deers. We have a herd of 6 deers. 3 deers were in the creek drinking. There's turtles in the creek that are that big. There's fish, tadpoles, all kinds of mammals. It's a wonderful place, and that the terrible thing about the creek is all of the village streets drain into it. And if people go pouring oil into the sewers, it ends up into the creek. And it's such a beautiful, natural area in Dummersville. Yes, people, please plant these things to do your part.
And hopefully nobody here is pouring oil down. It seems kind of, obvious, but actually, I've come across people that do that and they don't understand that the drains in the street go to storm sewer pipes, which go to the creeks, which go to the river, which goes to Mississippi. We've actually, you'll notice on the drains on the newer areas of town, when we replace an open drain, an open lid, it'll say, don't dump stuff down here because it goes to the street.
Yeah.
So public education is a big thing, and that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight. So,
We have a stenciling program
Yeah.
that you could work in your neighborhoods, that you stencil on the street, that it says, dump no waste drains to river, or drains to pond. And so again, if you want to get involved and get engaged in some of these activities, there's volunteering, there's all kinds of activity. We have river cleanups and different things coming up that you can get engaged in.
Yeah, keep your eye on the village website, and especially, sign up for the Friday emails, because we're involved with that program. We've got one of our interns that's going to be spearheading that this year for the stenciling program, and it really does bring a lot of awareness to your neighborhoods about clean water. So, yes, sir.
Does the Conservation Foundation charge to come out and look at your property?
$3 million.
Well,
Bid over my budget.
the Conservation at Home program that I designed, no, we want to help you. So, do we have a program where I'm asking you to please support the work we do? Absolutely. But it's not, I don't say, well, write me a check or I don't come over. So you get help no matter what, and we encourage you to support the work that we do, but it's not mandatory.
In answer to one of the other lady's questions, I think maybe we might be one of the lucky recipients of some of the rather massive changes, because there's a culvert put in right across from our farm. Essentially, like a swimming pool underground, and it's made the water rating on our street so much better. We still have a backyard that's underwater 75% of the time. That's our problem. The street drainage is.
Well, you can imagine the pipes, when we have those big rain events, the pipes are full. So you can have this big pipe that's supposed to drain. If it's draining into a creek that's already full, it can't. So that's what happens. The system gets overfilled. And that's why I'm trying to, now when it's not raining, is the time to plan so that these pipes are not overfilled. We're holding that back away from the creeks and rivers longer. And so it drains naturally and slowly over a period of weeks, not, runs across the street and goes in there immediately, because it can't handle that. So we've had flooding in places, all kinds of these areas. Lyle was hit very bad. And the same way, you might have had a system, but the system can't handle it. So now when we have time and it's not raining, this is the time to think about these things and what could you do, even in some little way. Cumulatively, we're hoping that hundreds and hundreds of people doing these concepts will have some effect on that creek at some point. And I'd be happy to come to your house and we'll walk it.
Absolutely.
And see what I can do to help you improve or look at those sites. And the same thing, any of you, if you need help, I'm here to help you.
Is there anybody in the audience that can, there's something that happens on the creek. It's at least 4 times a year. The creek will run like milk for 2 days. It'll be milk white, like someone's pouring milk into it. I grabbed samples and it's not biologic. It's very fine particulate, 30 microns in this.
I'd have to look at it. But again, call me and we'll take a look at the individual situation and see what we can do to make it a little bit better at least.
Well, it's not for me.
Question in the back?
How much are rain barrels, and is there a discount available on the stormwater fee if you purchase one?
As I understand it, if it's your first barrel, there's a $25 incentive. So after you buy the barrel, you submit for the credit. The barrels are $60 online. You can order them, one of 4 colors. And you can have it delivered to your home, or there's going to be a pickup event in May. May 15th at the Public Works office. You can pick up the barrel, so there'd be no additional delivery charge. And again, the city is promoting it, and the barrels are coming through us.
You sell them in April?
Yes, you can come to the farm on Sunday and get one, or anytime. We have them at the Naperville farm. Let's try over here.
You mentioned sunlight. Are there natives that are like shade friendly?
Absolutely. We've got them dry. There's a native cactus. So from the dry end of the spectrum to the wet side, from full shade to full sun, I laugh and tell people there's stuff grows on the bottom of the lake and the top of the mountain. I'm certain I can find something suitable for your site. Okay, we're back in the corner.
Going back to the incentives you mentioned earlier, I've always sort of wondered why, like I bought a rain barrel, I get a credit, but what was the logic behind that credit not being an ongoing credit? If it being a one-time credit. If I put in a rain garden, I get a $100 credit. 10 by 10 rain garden gives me a $100 credit once.
Well, I think the simple answer is you did it once, you get the credit once.
Even though I'm mitigating the stormwater permanently, I only get a one-shot credit. I just want to...
Well, most places don't give any credit, so I certainly applaud. This is the only place that I go to, and I do 60 of these a year. Nobody gets credit, except here.
I appreciate the credit.
So,
I'm not complaining about that.
okay.
I'm just wondering why isn't it a continuous thing?
Well, that would mean you want to be doing more. So once you've done the one good thing, then we're trying to,
But then if I get a second rain barrel, I don't get a credit.
well,
So what
something,
who's
maybe
paying
next
the
year.
second rain barrel?
Over here.
Where can we find the native plants? Because I heard no one sells like Home Depot and those places.
Okay, the growing place is here, they're in the next room. Pizzo is here, and those are 2 big places that we get our native stuff in this area. Wanamakers, I'm working on with them on natives. They don't have a good selection right yet, but I'm working with a number of places that can get the plants for you. If you want to use contractors, they're in the room next door too. I'll take one over here first.
This is a question about sort of the aesthetics of these kinds of plants. There have been numerous cases in the news where someone says, this is a natural garden, natural vegetation, and the city, whatever, somebody comes in and mows it down and says this was just weeds. If I dig up my whole front lawn and there are all of these natural plants there. It's, you know, what is the line between it just being wild and somebody complains and it being, you know,
That would be some ordinance issue that we can deal with.
I don't have the code book right in front of me, but we don't have that kind of code here. If something is the plant that's the right place, the right time and everything else, you will not get citation for that, even if it's over 18 inches tall. There's a section in the code that talks about the plants being where they're supposed to be, so I wouldn't worry about that.
And I help you with
Yeah.
selection.
Yeah.
So there are, I'm going to tell you, not every native plant is the prettiest thing ever. And some are aggressive, I won't say invasive, but they're aggressive. So we're going to select ones, especially for the front yard, that are are mild-mannered and going to be pretty. So I certainly, that's where you get right plant, right place. Front yard, you want to show it, not...
Just to correct a misstatement from earlier, if you do put in a rain garden, you can apply, and it's up to $300 of an incentive, and rain barrels are $25. But it is one time.
Where can we find the incentives?
The application,
Well, application and also what is allowed.
okay. If you go on our website, okay, in the upper right-hand corner, under trending topics, it says stormwater utility. You can click on that, or type in stormwater utility in the search box. It'll take you to the stormwater utility page. It'll talk all about it. As you scroll down, it'll talk about there'll be a link to the stormwater credit and incentive manual. There's also just a PDF that you can click on for the incentive application, and that's pretty all-inclusive in that little application. The application is free, and you can either email it to me or mail it in, and we go from there.
Yes?
Thank you. I might be putting you a little on the spot on this question, but you've shown us a lot of great ways to sit there and conserve water. What do you think about, this village has done a lot to sit there and try to put a lot of sidewalks in. It's clearly taking away from permeability of water to put that sidewalk in.
Well, one of the things, if you come to the farm on Sunday or any other time, there are some new products like permeable concrete. So we need sidewalks, kids have to walk to school. We're trying to find ways, new ways of creating livable, walkable spaces that are permeable. The city's done permeable pavers, so that's another alternative. And there's some paver companies inside. So the answers are there. It's just a matter of where we can use the best BMP for that situation. And I'm fully in agreement that on every level, we should be looking at, can we use a better product than what we've been using, the typical stuff. So I agree. And come see what we have at the farm. It's really, it looks like a Rice Krispie treat. So I like the way it looks, and it's very functional for what we have. Even in the summer, it drains straight down. In the wintertime, there seems to be warm air coming up through it, and it kind of melts off the little residue of snow, and no water puddles. So there's never any ice situation on it. So it's been around for a long time, but we haven't seen it, and people want to see it, touch it, feel it for a while before we get used to thinking that this is a new surface. And Naperville Park District did a big parking lot right off of Washington and Ring Road. So you're seeing more of these things, and I think we can look for more things to be coming in the area soon.
Is that the petroleum product?
It's actually concrete.
It's concrete.
Permeable concrete is what we have at the farm. It's made by Ozinga. It's called Filtercrete. You can Google Filtercrete and look at it. But there are a number of different things. I've seen glass. There's permeable asphalt, I think. There are some other products that people are coming up with, that new and innovative things to solve those issues. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for your time.